And now, ladies and gentlemen,
Put your thumbs up and say it's Tickety Boo.
Tickety Boo.
Tickety Boo, Tickety Boo, everything's Tickety Boo.
Tickety Boo, son. Tickety Boo.
Tickety Boo!
right, be honest, how many times have you told yourself, I can't do that, without even questioning it? Turns out, most of us have a small collection of invisible rules in our heads holding us back for no good reason. I'm too old for that. I'm just not that type of person. I could never. Sound familiar? Well, today we're putting those beliefs under the microscope and figuring out how to stop talking ourselves out of things we're perfectly capable of. So, if you're ready to challenge the nonsense in your own head, let's get into it. Hello and welcome back to another episode of Tickety Boo. I'm back here with Iona, Ian and Barney. And today we're going to be talking about something which is those stories we tell ourselves inside of our heads, those limiting beliefs. I'm not good enough. I can't do this. Like there's just a part of you holding you back. If I had £1 for every time somebody said I'm not smart enough, good enough, young enough to do something, we would be recording this episode in the Maldives. So, limiting beliefs. I can recall many, many times in my life where I've told myself I can't, or I'm not good enough, or I'm not worthy to do something. I think it's something we do all the way through our lives, even when we do have good levels of awareness. It's an ongoing process. Can you guys think of times in your life where a limiting beliefs got in the way of your progress?
Yes, short answer. Endlessly.
I challenge you to find somebody that can say no to this. Yeah, go on. Do you mind sharing a bit?
Oh my gosh. I've shared before many times, but it's understanding these limiting beliefs where I believe it's because of those I ended up with an eating disorder. I was suicidal in my teenage years. I abused alcohol and drugs. And a lot of that was I didn't feel like I fit in. I wasn't enough. Some of it was triggered from trauma in my childhood and my parents divorcing. So it's like nothing I did was good enough. I didn't feel good enough. And the thing I want to kind of, if anyone's thinking, oh, well, but I've reached a certain level, I'm good. You know what? It doesn't matter where we are. There's always another level. Like my favorite philosopher, Shrek, says we're like onions. There's always another layer. Like we're just, so as soon as we think we've gotten somewhere, so for anyone who thinks they've done the work, they're all sorted, because goodness knows the three of us have done a lot of work. These doubts, these limiting beliefs, they come up again and again because they're in our unconscious, so it's not necessarily that they go away, but we can become aware of them so they don't hold us back and trigger us and have us repeating negative patterns. I've shared some really extreme ones, but yeah, it's the confidence, it's that I can't do this, who am I to do this, I'm too old to do this, I'm not thin enough, I'm not good looking enough. But anytime I feel, and I've noticed that with my clients, as soon as we've done some work, as soon as they're about to up level or go to a new level of identity or broach a new project, new business, or just expand their possibilities or change their personal situation, those self-doubts come back in. And I think that's something that's really important that we need to share.
Yeah.
That they're there, you become better able to deal with them. Now, I don't feel suicidal or have eating disorders or any of that now. I've done the work with that. But the underlying beliefs that would have kicked those off are obviously there. It's not like they're gone forever. We don't erase them, but we're better able to deal with them and they don't trigger us in the same way. Just wanted that out there right away.
What about you, Ian? Can you think of points in your life where a limiting belief has held you back or...
Yeah, absolutely. I think generally I'm fairly confident and probably maybe at times a bit cocky, but there are definitely, right at the moment, an example is I've mentioned to you both that this year my resolution is to try and get out there on socials and do some video clips, some shorts, because it's so far out of my comfort zone and my limiting beliefs say that's rubbish, I'm just not cut out for that. But in reality all I need to do is practice. So I've probably got 200 clips, of which probably 5 are okay. but I don't want to put out there because in my head I'm saying I'm not cut out for that. But it's the same as when we do a project at work. Something that I do is I say, right, I'm really good at the plums, the verticals, the plans, but I'm not creative. So somebody else will pick up with the colours and the dressing of the rooms and things like that. And as it goes, I've done it a million times, so I should have a pretty good handle on it now, but I've already pigeonholed myself as, oh no, I'm the builder, I do the straight lines and the verticals, and somebody else does the creative stuff.
Yeah. The interesting thing with these limiting beliefs, and we'll use the example of you not wanting to put a video out, is that limiting belief feels like this great big fence in front of you that you can't get over until you put a video out and it goes well, and suddenly that fence completely disappears. So ironically, limiting beliefs do hold great power until you challenge them, and then they tend to fall apart.
Yeah. Well, that's it. You see them for what they are. Once you challenge them, you see them for what they are, and you actually question them.
I can remember many moons ago you, Iona, saying get yourself on socials.
I did. And you did.
And I did, but I spent a lot of time not doing that, because the limiting belief was, who am I to show my expertise? Who'd be interested? People are going to mock me, and people are going to do this. Limiting belief was never put yourself in the spotlight, keep yourself down, and all the rest of it. But the reality is, nobody cares. Like, literally, nobody cares.
On the drive over here today, I was listening to an audiobook, and it was really interesting, so that nobody cares. And I was like, oh, I hope I remember these numbers. So that caring about what other people think, and that being awkward and shy and reserved and we're not sure, I think it was over 90% of students report feeling that at some point in their life. And then when they asked, like, adults and people who are in the workforce and however it is they worked, it was still, I think it was like 47%. So we've got, like, if you think about it, at least 50% of the people in the room are having some self-doubt, some limiting belief. And so they're not actually, everybody's worried about themselves and they think everybody else is judging them, but really nobody's judging, because most people are also concerned about how they're coming across. And also in this audiobook, it was saying that those people who appear not to be as bothered is they don't let it be a priority. They're just going to show up because they don't get so triggered about, they're not ruminating on what do other people think. They're like, oh well, and move on. So they still will have those same thoughts, but they don't focus on them. Their focus is on the connection. It's all there. But yeah, so most people aren't paying attention to us.
Yeah, I talked in an earlier episode how I'm doing this 100 video TikTok thing at the moment, where I'm going to put 100 videos out. And right in the stages of its infancy, part of me went, you're going to run out of subjects, no one's going to be interested, it's going to be a complete flop, blah, blah, blah. I ignored that voice and just got into the process of just doing. Ironically, as I was in that phase, a video appeared on TikTok that says, just put the frickin' video out, and consistently put the video out, because that's how you get better and that's how you do more. So, there is this belief of, you're not going to be good enough, nobody's interested, it's going to fail, you're just wasting your time. But ironically, quite early on, within 3 or 4 videos, lovely comments, thanks for sharing that with me, I found that really interesting, people sharing their personal stories with me. So if you feel a fence or a barrier in front of you, lean on it, because you'll probably find that fence will fall over quite easily.
And then you just demonstrated, look what can happen when we jump over that fence or push it over. It's the people that are being helped by your message, that will be helped by your message. It's because when we share, we don't know the lives that we're going to touch. And it's those limiting beliefs that would stop us and stop you helping somebody, stop you having that impact.
Well, ironically, if you look at Ian's limiting belief that he was talking about, you could walk into any room in this country and talk about this subject passionately and engage with people.
In fact, you're even on a podcast talking about it.
Ironically, you're doing it right now. But ironically, another part of you's gone, but I can't do that if I'm videoing myself on my own phone.
Yeah,
it's like
it is strange. I mean, these assumptions that we just fail to just challenge and question. It is strange because the content is what's important, and that's all I'm bothered about. The content. but then I look back at the videos and go, well, you know, it could be anything like his voice is angry, he's talking out of his nose. Who wants to listen to that? His beard shaved, a bit wonky today. All this stuff that's totally relevant.
But that phrase, nobody cares, like literally nobody cares. And that's where we have to have a word with that part of ourselves, because part of you is going, you look and sound a prat. Don't put it out there.
That's exactly, yeah.
And the reality is, that is not the truth. And I guarantee you that first time you put that piece of content out there, you know, you do the thing, you'll get what I call positive tumbleweeds. None of the bad stuff that you've told yourself in your head will actually happen, and in fact you'll probably either get a couple of thumbs up or go, nice video, mate. And that's the way that it works. But I kind of want to lean more into, where does this stuff come from? I mean, we know sort of, you know, our belief systems are sort of formed in those formative years of, some say 7, some say 9, some say 10, but they're a byproduct of the environment that we grow up in. One of the things I very often speak to about in the therapy room with clients is where this stuff comes from is an example of being young and being at school. Some of the things that teachers say to us, you know, I can remember when I was at primary school, the majority of my teachers were from the 50s, you know, that sort of very sort of black and white, straight down the line, big discipline. Well, when I was at school, they were still giving you the cane and the slipper, so, you know, that's where we were from. But those teachers would point at you and go, you're stupid and you're going to come to nothing. You're a waste of space. On a very young, impressionable mind, you apply a label on somebody like that, they will take that label and they'll start to conform to it. So many years later, who am I to ask the girl out? Who am I to start the business or to go for a promotion on all this? And you start to conform unconsciously to these beliefs. You're not checking in on these beliefs all the time. They're actually operating as a bit of software underneath the surface, influencing and blocking you from doing the very things that would actually be good for you. So,
yeah. And with that, it was actually, because it's also what we hear at home. It's always our environment. This is what happens. But you've just reminded me, and I know I've shared it before, but it's so important that having a teacher say that directly to you. But I know one of the starts of my eating disorder somebody wasn't saying anything mean to me in malice. They were actually trying to be complimentary. I think we're in first year secondary school, so what would I have been, like 12? And the girl in front of me turned around to me and said, and she was lovely and she was one of my friends, I would rather be fat and happy like you than thin and miserable. And I was saying, I didn't know I was fat. I wasn't. I was actually a little bit smaller than I am now. It was the same height. So I was tall for my age at 12. I've just not grown since. But I was like, oh, I'm fat. And then I was like, well, what does that mean about me? And then you start listening to it. Like, it never occurred to me. I'd never had any fat shaming, and I wasn't fat. And I was maturing slightly faster than the other girls. But yeah, and that was a compliment. What she thought was a compliment was actually the thing that made me doubt myself.
So it wasn't what she said, it's how you interpreted what she said.
And that's really important, because she was trying to be nice.
Yeah. So it's our interpretation of things that are said to us and the experiences that happen to us that form these belief systems.
Yeah.
And they continue to influence the way that we think, feel and behave at an unconscious level throughout our lives. But isn't it interesting, that belief that happened to you when that was set up because of something that happened to you at the age of 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, that's not going to be so useful when you're 40, is it?
No.
Because how out of date is that? It's so out of date. And if you actually look and you do some work on yourself and you look at your belief system, you'll find that the majority of it comes from your childhood experiences.
Yeah, I always like to, without naming any names, we end up with a lot of CEOs leading companies or running big organizations who are behaving from their like tantrumy 3 and 4 year old, the 2-year-old has a tantrum when they don't get their own way, no matter how big or small the organization is that they're running, because they've not dealt with their trauma or they've gotten away with it again and again and again. So it's just proves to them they're behaving like toddlers in the playground.
I can always remember one of the funniest beliefs I picked up as a young kid was learning to swim. Probably primary school age, being taken to the swimming baths and learning how to swim. And I remember one of the teachers saying to us, whatever you do, don't eat before you swim, you'll sink and die.
I remember that one. Yeah.
Don't eat and swim. And you can't going, don't have something to eat before you go swimming because you'll sink and die. I mean, I get the underlying message, but silly little, even funny little silly things like that can get in there and be this little earworm and dictate how you behave. And we never go back and challenge this stuff. We just accept it as just part of who we are and where we are at that moment. It's only really when I started to train to be a therapist or somebody ends up in therapy and you point this stuff out to them like, oh my God, this is where I've got it from. So if you've got any moments in your life where you've challenged the belief and you've been proven to be completely wrong?
Yes.
Have you? Right, okay.
Yeah. I think like a lot of people, I try and push my boundaries or push what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And especially with, we did a job a couple of years ago and we built a block of flats. And I'd gone from sort of doing much, much smaller jobs to doing this job for myself. And all the way through, the imposter syndrome was kicking in. And I kept going, I'm not sure if I can do this. It's too big. I can't do it. And then I'd get over it. But what would always help me get over it is the people that were around me. I had 2 people in particular, Mark and Louise, close to me. And they both say, give your head a wobble, you know you've got this. And the faith that they had in me would then reinstill my own faith by surrounding myself with those people. It's only a small circle of people that I really take it in. But having those people around me that... Because I got into a negative mindset, so my mind was naturally searching out negative things that I could apply to the situation. And all it took was one of those couple of people just to say, sort your mind out, you know you've got this. And I'd calm down and I'd straighten out and I'd carry on. I wouldn't stop. I'd already committed, I wasn't going to stop. But those limited beliefs were really, really hard to get over.
But fundamentally, if you strip the layers of it back, we're really just scared in that moment. And we're unsure and we're uncertain. So we tell ourselves our stories, or we'll come up with reasoning as to why we shouldn't or can't do that thing.
Well, on the subject, and as somebody that takes risk, do you ever have limiting beliefs that stop you or make you hesitate?
Oh God, yeah, absolutely. I think whenever I think of doing something in life, my brain is very quick at firing 100 reasons at me why I shouldn't do it. I think the key thing now is having a different level of awareness of going, I'm telling myself a story here, and it's just a story, it's not fact. And I would rather try the thing and fail than not do it at all. Because you never actually truly fail anyway, because you're going to learn something as part of the process anyway. So one of the things I've kind of learned is just challenge beliefs. And if you can't do it, that's all right. You've still learned something in the process.
Well, it's even our last episode where you were saying that it was that fear of failure, that thing of not doing it. It's like I forgot what I was going to say.
That's all right. I'm sure it'll come back to you.
Okay.
There you go.
But Thomas Edison, I'm told that he tried the light bulb 1,000 times.
Yeah.
And just imagine if on 999,
Yeah.
he just says, right, I'm not cut out for this. I'll try something new.
Yeah.
You know, and that's...
I think there's a certain group of people with a mindset of if they're told something's not doable or achievable, they will find a way of doing it. I can give you an actual real world living example of this. Many years ago, I started a business with a friend of mine, and we were doing telecommunications. We had like a tiny pot of money, like next to no money at all. I mean, like literally, we painted the walls in the office ourselves and bought some cheap IKEA furniture and put it together. We had nothing, and we had a phone. And at the time, we were selling telephone systems to businesses, and an opportunity came up to sell a system to a local company that were a PLC. They were massive, they were on the FTSE 100. Limiting Beliefs immediately went, this company's massive, they're well established, they're on the FTSE 100. It's a huge project. I think it was about £500,000. We will never get this. And then the guy who was working with at the time, who was really good at sales, let's just go pitch and get in the game to see if even they'll talk to us about doing it. And I'm like, they won't, but okay, you go for it. And he went off and did that meeting and went, they want to talk to us. In fact, they want to come to our offices. And I'm like, if they come here, they're going to see that we're just two guys that have started this. Anyway, long story short, we borrowed furniture. We went to the manufacturer of the phone system, said we need display things, and we just made the office busy. We had 4 friends come into the office, and they were walking around and making tea and pretending to do emails. And we put on this thing, and we put a pitch together, and we put it together with the support of the manufacturer. Long story short, we won the business. We were the smallest company, but we just decided to ignore the belief and go with it anyway and be prepared to fail, and we won it. And all these other big companies that were far bigger than us and much more established could not believe that we got it. And the thing is, they got with us because we were just 2 people that were relatively new. We over-serviced that customer and really looked after them, which a larger organisation may not have been done. It was really uncomfortable leaning against that fence, but actually it worked out to be an amazing thing.
I love that story, and I remembered what I was going to say because it was in the last episode. It's about having no regret. Mm-hmm. Can you imagine what would your life be like if you hadn't taken those, like all these things that we do when we override our limiting belief?
Yeah.
Like, what are we choosing?
Yeah.
Are we choosing to stay in our little bubble and not do anything that scares us? Are we choosing to listen to the negativity gremlins? Or are we choosing to make a difference? Because if we keep doing the same old thing, which we talked about before, nothing's going to change.
Yeah.
And our limiting beliefs hold us back.
They do. They make you procrastinate. Mm-hmm. You'll come up with, one day I will.
Oh, that's the big one, isn't it?
Or, when this happens, I will then do this. Normally in the adulting phase of life, when the kids are grown up and the mortgage is paid off and this has happened, which is fundamentally going, that will be never. There's never the right time. There's never the good time. There's just the time you decide to do it. Like you've used this phrase several times. The best time to have planted a tree was 50 years ago. The next best time is now, kind of thing. But fundamentally, your beliefs tip you into fear, and they lean you away. We can look at many examples. Young lad on the dance floor dropping some shapes, and there's a girl. You're like, go and ask her out. Go and ask her for a dance. Oh no, because if she knocks me back, that'll be it. I'll never get over it, and nobody will ever talk to me again, and I'm just going to live my life on their own. No, she'll just say, no thanks. No, you're all right, thanks. But there's people that have had negative experiences. We've referred to this before. Can you remember that moment when the teacher in the classroom makes you stand up and read something out loud in front of the class? Oh my God. And it's not that you can't read, it's because you're so nervous that everyone's watching you, and all your friends are willing you to trip up and stumble. And if you do have that moment of nervousness and you do stumble, that moment becomes so impressionable in your mind that in the future you don't want to do that Teams call, that presentation, the public speaking. You don't want to talk as the best man. You don't want to push yourself in your business. You don't want to push yourself in your social circles because there's something that happened to you when you were 9 in the classroom.
Yeah.
That's just totally and utterly triggered. I've been wondering where some of my limiting beliefs come from, and that's exactly what it was.
Yeah.
Me and 3 of my brothers all had sort of dyslexia to a certain degree. So when I used to have to get up and I'd be asked to stand up and talk, I'd totally fluff it, the words would be back to front and upside down and all sorts, and I just couldn't do it.
Yeah.
People would take the mick and laugh, and I'd be told I was stupid and sit down. Now there'd be a label for it, and they'd probably be a bit kinder. But that's exactly you just saying that. You've just helped me just realise exactly where my issue with not wanting to make a fool of myself with the video.
Yeah.
That's exactly it.
Yeah.
You know, so my idea of hell is being a best man, which I've done 3 times. You have to stand up in front of everybody.
Yeah.
But publicly being ridiculed because you can't get up and read out loud, that's exactly where my issues with the video come from. So
I think we need to learn to
really
start
resonated.
questioning our beliefs and going, where did this come from? You just had that moment. I can see where this comes from. And now you're in a position and going, is it true? Is it really true? Or is it just something happened and I felt uncomfortable and that's why this response is happening today?
yeah, well, I can. It was true, but I can certainly look at it now and say, is it still the case? No. So actually, when you have these thoughts and you come to make a decision, maybe we should start to listen to our internal rhetoric, actually listen to what we're saying to ourselves and consciously listen to the words that we're using and actually challenge them and say, is that true? Because we don't actually stop, listen to our own, how we're talking to ourselves and what we're saying.
You said to us, you've recorded a decent sized batch of videos. You've then made the mistake of sitting there and psychoanalyzing them and ruminating on them. But really what you needed to do in that space was, I'm feeling something right now. I can feel it. What am I up inside my head telling myself? What story am I telling myself right now that is stopping me or making me feel uncomfortable to move forwards? Because, do you know what? It's not true. It's my anxiety trying to show me the worst possible case scenario.
Yeah.
And as I say, when you publish that first video and nothing happens, I've talked about this on previous podcasts where Iona for a long time was like, get yourself on socials. And I can remember my very first post, and I mean, this is how bad it was. It was a video of me talking about what I was doing. I recorded it. I put it on my Facebook. When you create a post, uploaded the video, did the text, and I sat there with my laptop open with the post button, and it, like, all day, like, no, go through to the kitchen, no. And finally, before I got to bed, I went, post, slammed the lid down on my laptop, went to bed absolutely crippled with anxiety. And then the next day, I was terrified to open my laptop or go on my Facebook because I'm like, oh, there's going to be notifications and people are going to notice the video. There's going to be comments, and I sort of got the laptop lid and went like this and opened it. And there was, maybe a dozen notifications, and there was like a thumbs up, a love heart. Great to see you doing that, mate. Oh, that's really interesting. Go you. Not one negative comment. And like that belief just went, gone. And that was it. I was off. So weirdly, you have to go through the discomfort to get to the other side of it.
Yeah.
You need to get comfortable with the discomfort, because that's how we bring about change.
Yeah. I mean, people listening to this episode, start to become aware of the stories you tell yourself. Feel out in your life where the resistance is to do things, whether that's finding a new partner, a new job, and, improving your finances, changing your mindset. Some people will tell themselves they're not intelligent enough. I can't learn something new. I'm not clever enough.
But as you're saying that, the scope for how these limiting beliefs hold you back are huge.
Oh, it's mega.
For example, you've just come out of a relationship. So what you do, you should tell yourself, I'm not good at relationships. So what happens? You manifest that for yourself.
Oh, that self-fulfilling prophecy.
Yes, exactly.
That one.
Yeah. That's not my kind of work, or whatever it is. It's huge.
Yeah. We were talking earlier, and I was sort of telling you about some challenges I'm working through in business and sort of some sort of personal stuff, business stuff that's going on at the moment. And we were talking about all the things that were going wrong, but I went, I don't know why, but weirdly, I know I'll figure it all out.
Yeah.
But where an older version of me would have been like, this is it. this is where it all falls apart and the wheels come off, and history's going to repeat itself, and you haven't got the skills, you haven't got this, you should have done this, you should have done that. And then what the old version would have gone, procrastinate, don't do anything. In fact, tuck it under the rug and just pretend it doesn't exist until it's chapping at the door that loud that you've got to pay attention to it. Now I just believe, do you know what, somehow I'll figure it out. There's a solution there, I just haven't found it yet.
And when we get into that spiral, it's like we can't see the wood for the trees or the forest for the it's like we're so caught up in that spiral. Like, again, coming back to what we were talking about the last episode, like, pause, take time to relax, like, don't be attached to the outcome. Just allow yourself to step back. Don't hide it under the rug. But just step back and take a moment and pause. And that's that thing where we were talking into last time about the stress that takes over. Because this limiting belief is feeding the stress, and then it just ends up in this big sort of like mess. Pause, step away from it, do something else. And like, this will pass is always a good one. It didn't kill me last time is another one. It's like all these things. And also when we're dealing with these layers of limiting beliefs, and at the beginning of the show, I was saying that the limiting belief can still be there, but it just kind of changes its hat, shall we say, with the layer of the onions. So for you, like, that fear of visibility right now, it's like, okay, fear of being visible, fear of being judged. You may do 1,000 of these, and then suddenly you've got to be on a bigger stage or do something bigger, and then that fear will creep in, but now it'll be like, oh, it's still the fear of visibility, but it's like, oh, but now they're comparing it to what I've done, so that there can be another element of fear as we go into bigger and bigger stages. Or the fear of failure when we want to first start a business. Initially we're like, oh no, what if I fail? What if this goes wrong? Oh, I can't do this. Who am I to do this? And then we suddenly want to grow our business, or we want to get a second business, or we want to expand. Suddenly that fear of failure that we had at the beginning is still there, but now it's that, what if I'm seen to fail? Because you have an audience, you have clients, you have a business. And so it's still that, and so you go, okay, it didn't kill me last time, and I know I'll figure it out.
Once you challenge the belief, it's like the cords holding you back, the bungee cord that keeps pulling you back to that position is just released, and then you're off. It's like Ian was saying, I didn't want to do the videos. I'm not somebody that's good at talking, but it wasn't. It was just really, I had this unpleasant experience at school once. And I don't want it to happen again. It's got nothing to do with videos at all. But as you started saying to yourself, I need to start doing this, your brain immediately started to come up with 101 reasons as to why you shouldn't do it. And actually, that's just a little internal protective mechanism going, I don't want you to be hurt, embarrassed, abandoned, whatever it is. And you go, yeah, thanks for that, but I'm going to do it anyway, because if any of those things happen, I'll manage it.
Yeah, it's crazy, really, because within myself, that I was struggling. It came to me, as you were speaking, and something rung true. But if it was a friend that was having self-limited doubts, from the outside, I'd look at them and go, that's rubbish. That's rubbish. But sometimes within ourselves, we can't see it. But the people that are close to us, they can see through it. You are capable of that. What's wrong with you? Of course you've got it.
I think in this context, it's really useful to have somebody to work with you. I've only got to where I've got through my training and having done work on this. You can do it yourself, but it's so much easier to have somebody to work with you to go, right, let's lift you out the situation, put you in a helicopter view so you can look down on this and we can look at it for what it really is, and someone offers you an alternative narrative to the one you've been running inside your mind. Because all it takes is just one, like I said, blah, 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 and you're like, ka-ching, and you just get it. But you've been up inside your head for so many years running the same story. The opposing stories never had a chance to get through. And that's how quick. Look how many years that limiting belief's been sat there for, and then within a minute it dissolves.
Get some value from that. Because that is literally how what we do works.
It is exactly.
So just like that, you've just totally disarmed that and just helped me see it for what it is. Now I see it for what it is. I'm going to disempower that belief. Work through it. I've kind of just made a rod for my own back now, haven't I? Because now I've got to put a video out.
Everyone's watching it in socials.
But in reality, that is what. So people should take some value from that, because that's how easily, with the right guidance, with somebody that's tuned into you, and listening and knows how to process that and help you process it, that's how easily.
But the thing is, it's like, you know, if we look at your skill set, you know, so we know you were an apprentice builder and there's lots of multi-trades you can do. Like, I have a limiting belief that I couldn't build a wall. But actually, you could probably spend a couple of days with me and show me and go, this is how you do it, and I'll give you some pointers. And I would be able to start building a wall. And as I'm going through that process, that whole belief has started to evaporate. Yeah, and you've been challenging beliefs all your life. You know, I watch it here when I teach students. When people come in to learn to be a therapist, I do a demonstration. You can sit there and going, oh God, I'd never be able to do that. That's impossible. And with days or hours later, they're actually doing it. And it's like, you know, you faced the fear, you did it anyway. And now look at what you're capable of doing. And that's the key thing. I think so many people choke or throttle their ability to be successful and happy because of these limiting beliefs. And actually just challenge them, because the quality of life and the potential of what you can reach is massive.
Yeah,
it is. It's, you know, if everybody listened to the stories they tell themselves, I'll never be able to climb that, I'll never find a cure to this, we will never be able to find that money, we'll never be able to, the world would just be stifled. And
I hate to sound cheesy, but again, you go back to that thing. If you could do anything without a fear of failure, what would it be? And in reality, that's how you should be thinking.
Yeah, one of my clients came from a very deprived part of Glasgow, from two parents that very hard up, very little money. And you see so many people that come from that environment with money's hard to come by. You know, they often end up just getting by or struggling consistently. And this particular guy started selling, when they first came out, pay-as-you-go mobile phones from the boot of his car to people. And then they had a little stall in a market, and then a shop, and then another shop, and then another shop. And I can never remember the figure, but they sold a non-controlling share of their business not that long ago for 75 million quid.
Love it.
Now, when I spoke to him, I said, where was your mind at when you did this? And he just kept saying to himself, there's nothing stopping me from being successful other than me. That was it. But he could have looked at mum and dad and everybody around him in the area and gone, this is my lot, this is who I am. No, we're not saying you need to go out and create an empire and sell your business for however millions it is, but challenge, look at the stories you're telling yourself. That is what this is all about. And sometimes it makes you look at parts of yourself you don't want to look at.
Yes.
Yeah.
It really does make you look at parts of you that you're like, no, I don't want to go there. Challenge them. I can't explain the feeling you get when you just when you experience a belief collapsing inside of you. That feeling can become addictive. It really can.
Well, that's good, because we all have different limiting beliefs. So it's not a case of collapse one, it collapses them all.
Yeah.
You can do something different. It's like within one area of my life, my professional area, I am pretty fearless. But then you come into another area where I can't even talk into a mobile phone and put it on my Facebook, but then over in this area, I'm pretty well, not ruthless, but without limit.
Without limit, yeah, fearless.
I think we can all look at things in our lives that we've managed to achieve, regardless of where you rank them on the level of success or whatever it is, that years previous, if we said to ourselves, you're going to have achieved that, you would have struggled to believe it. You really would. The thing is, beliefs are just thoughts, they're not facts. But we believe them as though they are facts. It's this invisible force in the universe stopping you from doing things. And, they are unconscious. You don't walk around all day thinking about them. but they are a bit of software that sit underneath the surface, influencing your automatic responses to things. I've said this before, and I'll say it many times again on this podcast. When it comes to limiting beliefs, the reality is something happened to you. Yeah. A response was set up off the back of that thing happening to you, and that response keeps running ever since, until you realise that the response was set up and that there is an option to do something else completely different instead.
Okay. So how would you go about reframing or sort of getting around these limiting beliefs?
Well, I quite like taking it back to like the video thing that you talked about. If you're feeling resistance in doing something, you're normally up inside your head and you're normally saying something to yourself, it's not good enough, nobody's going to be interested, or, you know, whatever story that you're telling yourself. And start to challenge it. How do I know that? Is that the truth? Do I really know that's the truth? Or is that just something I'm telling myself? What's the worst that could happen? Yeah. What would I like to have happen? What would be the best possible outcome if I did this? Yeah. What would be, you know, what would be something I would really like to happen if this happened? And start to focus on that instead, and start to offer an alternative to it.
Well, some of that's almost like you practicing success in your head. So you're changing yourself to a growth mindset.
Yeah.
Where...
And with that growth mindset, I just want to, because there's, with those questions also, so that's looking forward, like what can happen, is this true? But it's also, if we look at where we've come from, so instead of looking for the failures and when we were ridiculed or when we were made fun of, or even when we find it, it's like, start to look for what has gone well when you have overcome something that held you back. So you're looking at your accomplishments, because that's how you also nourish, that's how you move from a fixed mindset where you're stuck in that, like, I can't do this, nothing good ever happens, I'm not enough, to going, well, you know what, I did that thing, I spoke on stage, I finished that project. Anything where you can find where you did well, where you overcome any challenge, any upset, anything, like, you know, with all the deaths that I've been through recently, like, I've overcome that. Like, that didn't knock me down. Now, probably 10, 20 years ago, that would have floored me. But I get to see, it didn't kill me then. And I've had a lot of people die in the process, so I've learned to deal with death. So I can look at, you know, I got through this, I survived this. When my mum died, it's like, it was hard. So we look for times when things have gone well, when we've succeeded, when we overcame something, when we may have done it and it didn't go well, but we survived and we're okay. So it's looking, so the forward success, and we're building an awareness of all those things that we've done and celebrating the challenges that we've overcome.
Yeah, I think you've got to look at expectations and outcomes. So we go back to the video thing. The expectation is you're going to put it out, everyone's going to laugh, it's going to be utterly rubbish and nobody cares, and you're going to be completely humiliated. I would say bring yourself a couple of steps back. Stop focusing on the outcome. Focus your energy into the process of doing it.
Yes. Yeah.
Don't try to control the narrative over the outcome. Focus what you can control, which is the process of doing it. Yeah. And whether the outcome's good or the outcome's bad, you'll deal with that when it happens, but it's not happening right now. Nobody's laughed at you right now. No one's rejected you right now. Step away from that. I think that's the key point, really. You know, it's like your mobile phone. It's a bit sluggish and it's not working right. Factory reset it. Factory reset yourself to clear out these beliefs. By the way, you never do get to this point of all of your beliefs are completely ironed out and you become this perfect human being living the perfect life. It's an ongoing process, and you'll pick up other beliefs throughout your life as well.
Yeah.
You know, you think of somebody with a fear of flying that's had bad turbulence, and they've suddenly got this fear of flying. Suddenly this belief kicks in, every flight's going to be bad. I'm going to be uncomfortable on every single flight. I now believe that I'm somebody that can't fly or isn't confident enough to fly or whatever it is. We've constantly got to challenge these little things. I've
got an ongoing one with the dentist. I was at the dentist yesterday. The hygienist was cleaning my mouth and it twinged me. I completely freaked, anxiety went through the roof. It was like, oh my God. So it was all those things where there was a time where I had to have Valium to go to the dentist because I'd had a really bad experience happen when I was 18 but they did it, so there became a thing. It's like, I can't do this. It always goes wrong at the end. Like all these things just, it's crazy. And my anxiety, it was crazy. And this was just yesterday.
So just going back to what you just said, and what you were saying previously, a lot of what we draw these beliefs from, we go back to a point in time where we draw this data from. So it's a previous experience.
Mm-hmm.
So I was saying to somebody when I was in Egypt, actually, that he's quite analytical. So to get over some stuff that he had as issues, he needs to draw back to data into it. But what he'd do is he'd always go back to that traumatic experience, and he'd never go back and draw back to different points of time along the way where he'd improved.
Mm-hmm.
So he was saying, well, and I was explaining to him, as you go back and you remember these things that give you these blues, if you can, don't keep going back to the first one, kind of erase that and look back to the data points that you've had as you've improved along the way. So then you can see your progress.
Yeah.
And you can sort of start to change the rhetoric in your head and reframe. Yeah. It's like learning to take criticism as an opportunity to learn rather than a personal
And
thing.
what you said was, that version of you that was left feeling embarrassed or humiliated or rejected in that event, ask yourself, what did that version of me need at that point? Reassurance, guidance, a hand on the shoulder going, this is just a moment in time and it will pass and it doesn't define who you are. And actually realise you can give yourself that at any time. You don't need somebody externally to do it. You can give it to yourself. So what did you need then? And give yourself a bit of that compassion.
Yeah.
And I wanted, so where you just said as well, where we have to learning to take criticism as constructive criticism, people can be kind with it, but also learning to take compliments. That was huge. I wasn't able to accept compliments until I was in my 40s, and it was my ex-husband who taught me to take compliments. He was like, you don't accept compliments. So what do you mean? Because we go, oh, well, no, I'm not. Like that when people compliment like a dress or something you're wearing, or whatever, it's like, oh, this old thing, I got it from somewhere, or if any compliment somebody gives you, like I couldn't take a compliment. And it was like, oh, like, no. And again, that's limiting belief. And we're also kind of, don't be big-headed, don't do this. I now just say thank you. And then I did have someone once give me a compliment, actually, in my in my 50s, and I said, oh, thank you. And they said, oh, you're big-headed. And I'm like, but you just gave me a compliment. I'm accepting it. Thank you very much. And moving on. So sometimes you're damned if you do and damned if you don't. But just like...
It's kind of strange, isn't it, how we sometimes can be uncomfortable giving people compliments for whatever reason, but also receiving them can feel a bit difficult.
I've never been uncomfortable giving people compliments.
But getting them.
But what we were saying about taking compliments, maybe we should, in our head, when we're struggling with things, actually visualise the outcome, visualise a positive outcome. So when the positive outcomes actually come, they feel more comfortable and they don't feel quite so alien.
Yeah, I think that's a great opportunity, because by visualising that, what you're actually doing is giving the brain a chance to catch up with the concept of what you want.
Kind of anchoring it in, anchoring the positive. It's like... And so that, because we know we do this in the therapy room too, when we've reached a good result, we anchor it in, we reaffirm it, we get them to reaffirm something back, and depending on what it is we're working with, it's like we're literally anchoring in that good feeling so they can remember this and this positive outcome.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I know when I first started thinking about posting business stuff on socials all those years ago, the story I was telling myself is I'll only do it when I feel completely safe and I know I'm only going to get positive feedback from it. How can I control that?
We can't control anybody else except ourselves.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So focus on what you can control, not what you can't.
Yeah.
And also control's an illusion, but that's a whole other episode.
Yeah, that's a whole different conversation. So I think for like people listening to this, it's really start to ask yourself, what's something I need to take a look at in my life, and maybe start to challenge, and just acknowledge that it can feel a bit uncomfortable. If you want to get beyond the belief, you're going to have to lean into discomfort. Mm-hmm. We talk about this often on this podcast, don't we? You don't go over it or under it, you go right through the centre of it.
That's it. And ask yourself, what could I do? Who could I be without this belief?
God, could you imagine
it? Game changer.
You're literally, your life can you can completely flip the script and then everything can change. Ask the question, take the risk, do the thing. Yeah, because you just don't know where it could take you, the people you could meet, the opportunities you could have, all the experiences you're missing out on just because of these stories you're telling yourself.
That's right.
I think.
And it would be good if you could challenge these beliefs and instead of making decisions based on fear and stories that you've told yourself, you actually reframe and start making decisions based on your aspirations and your experience, and then watch the opportunities that open up. So instead of because your mind is sort of, it kind of will always bias negativity, and it wants to work on patterns. So it will get fixed in this pattern that's quite hard to break. So just imagine if you could just reframe, and instead of your mind finding out this negativity and sort of becoming a self-fulfilling prophecy that way, make decisions and your thoughts and your actions based on what you want to do, what you believe you can do, your knowledge, and just think of all the doors it can open up. So instead of sourcing out negativity, you're actually sourcing out opportunity.
Yeah. The other thing is, you can't fix what you don't know. Most people are walking around not really realising they've got these limiting beliefs. And it all starts with bringing up your level of awareness. And that's sitting down and doing like a bit of an audit of yourself and the things that are going on in your life. Get awareness of the things first. And once you become aware of them, you then start to challenge them. It is that phrase, you can't fix what you don't know. And we lose so much time and opportunities to this stuff. And most people tend to wait till the situation's got to critical mass before they decide to do something about it. I wish we taught kids about limiting beliefs at primary school so they can start to learn to challenge them from a very early age, not in a toxic kind of way. Beliefs about themselves that they're not good enough, they're not worthy enough, they're not clever enough, they're not fit enough, they're not attractive enough, whatever it is, and install these tools into people from a young age to challenge this stuff and step beyond it. Because just think the quality of lives, the improvement in the quality of people's lives if we were taught that as a skill, as well as reading and arithmetic and things like that. It really is a skill. So I'd be like, take a good honest look at your life. Start to become aware of the stories you tell yourself. Notice in your life where you start to feel resistance about bringing about change and doing things. Then sit down with a pen and paper and be brutal. Be absolutely brutal. And then just start with something small.
When you say write it down, do you mean journaling?
No, I mean like get it out of your head what the problem is, where the resistance is at. I don't want to put a video out. Why not? And start to list all the reasons down why you don't want to put that video out. I think I sound stupid. I don't want people to laugh at me. I don't think I'm clever enough. And then start to challenge each one of those points and offer an alternative. Said who? Is this true? Where's the evidence to support this? And, work your way through it like that. It's a lot easier doing it with somebody like a therapist or a coach to do that with you. But you can totally do it yourself. But you've got to be aware of all those things first. And if you get awareness, you might go, I'm going to go and get somebody to help me with this. Here you go. This is what I've noticed about myself. Rather than a therapist or a coach spend hours digging through your stuff, you can do that work yourself. There's nothing stopping you from doing it.
You've both shared such great advice, and I think another piece and it's so simple that people can say for themselves is catch yourself when you're talking to people, oh, I never do that, oh, I can't, oh, like up until now, like I just get anyone I work with, like add that on when they say, oh, I can't do that, I've never been able to do that up until now. So you start to change the narrative yourself, and also just start to notice, become the observer, as you said, like zooming out as you're doing this work. It's something that's really great, and it has such great success, and it's a simple question, and all you go is, isn't that interesting? You catch yourself doing something, so instead of reprimanding yourself, beating yourself up, going, oh my gosh, there goes that limiting belief again, oh, I did it again, you say, I've been doing all this work. It's like, no, just observe it.
I think the most powerful thing you can have about yourself is curiosity.
Yeah.
Start to become really curious about yourself. As a therapist, people pay me to become curious about them And I actually invest a lot of time and energy to get to know them, more about them than they know about themselves, and then turn on my little searchlight and go, oh, look at this over here. Have you ever thought, have you noticed? They're like, oh, you know, as a therapist, we don't install resources within people. We reconnect them to stuff that they've become disconnected from due to life experiences.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's exactly the same as what's just happened a minute ago with me realising that thing about, from our own point of view, we can sort of sort out so much, but there are so many layers that have been compressed on top of that over the years. It's just so hard to see what it is. But looking in from the outside, you know, like that, you've just hit the nail on the head and made me realise.
Yeah.
So though I kind of, you kind of know what the issue is, and I mean we're trained in this, but I still couldn't see that under all these different layers until you just pointed it out quite clearly.
Most people are, it's sort of like metaphorically they're fumbling around in the dark a little bit with it. You just get a torch and go, here, I'll have a look over here. And they're like, thanks, I can take it from here now. And they sort it out. It's a lovely thing to see. You know, it's really freeing. And as somebody to view somebody getting that barrier removed for them, it feels absolutely fantastic.
Absolutely. I still get, with certain cases, when you see that state change in front of you, I still get a 2 or 3 day high from it. It's the best feeling in the world.
Yeah, it is. So, you know, if you're listening to this episode right now and you're like, do you know what, I am ready for some change in my life, is do that little exercise of sitting down, writing where the resistance is and the things you're telling yourself, and then start to challenge them. How do I know this? Yeah. Why is this true? Is it really true? Is this a story I'm telling myself? Where did this come from? And start to challenge it. And then if you do feel stuck, get some help from somebody to help you move beyond it, because honestly, what you can achieve without this stuff in your way is absolutely incredible. It's like I've asked you to run in a 100-metre sprint and I've chained 3 tyres to you. And we remove those tyres and whoosh, you can just kind of go. I really enjoyed that. I think that was a great conversation. I hope people listening to this episode have taken a lot from it. As always, give us a follow, a like, subscribe on whatever platform you're listening, and we look forward to catching up with you in the next episode.
If you or someone close to you needs to access mental health support, please contact your GP, or if it's out with normal office hours, get in touch with NHS 24 on 111. Alternatively, contact the Samaritans on 116 123. All calls are free of charge from any phone. You can also find more support information on the Tickety Boo website, ticketyboopodcast.co.uk.